Now, the Black Sea country of Georgia is preparing to hold an election that will pit a coalition of pro-Europe parties against a government that's seen as leaning towards Russia. Opinion polls indicate that most Georgians are in favour of joining the EU, but Georgia's neighbour, Russia, has traditionally had a lot of influence over the country. And in recent years, the governing Georgia Dream Party has been pursuing policies that put it at loggerheads with Brussels. Our correspondent Maria Katamadze has this.
Ahead of the parliamentary elections, the campaign race is in full swing. The ruling Georgian Dream Party holds a campaign rally in the town of Rustavi, just south of the capital Tbilisi. The party founder, Bidzina Ivanishvili, a billionaire and considered the most powerful man in the country, says the elections are a choice between war and peace.
The previous government is responsible for the tragic war between Georgia and Russia in 2008. The National Movement Party started the war on instructions from abroad. I guarantee if you support us in the October elections, nobody will be able to drag Georgia into war.
The ruling party's election campaign features images of devastated Ukrainian towns contrasted with images of a prosperous Georgia. The clear message: the same could happen to Georgia if the pro-European opposition wins the elections. Critics say the government is increasingly tilting toward Moscow, and Ivanishvili himself has vowed to ban pro-European opposition if Georgian Dream is re-elected. This year, after the government introduced what is known as a foreign agent law, the country was plunged into months-long pro-EU protests. The law requires groups that receive funds from abroad to register with the authorities. Opponents said it was inspired by a similar law that the Kremlin has used to silence critical voices. But despite its current poor relations with the European Union, the ruling government insists Georgia will join the EU. The party emblem with EU stars, evidently aimed at convincing supporters, all is on track. Is this party leading you to Europe?
Yes, it is leading us there.
Despite the fact that Brussels has frozen Georgia's EU integration?
No one can stop this, believe me.
Opposing Georgian Dream are a number of parties, largely divided. One of the opposition parties is led by Georgi Gakaria. He served as Prime Minister for Georgian Dream from 2019 until his resignation in 2021. But today he is campaigning against his former colleagues.
When the government is using the fear of war to achieve their electoral goals to get more votes, and blackmails and frightens its citizens with war, this shows its weakness and its real face. Our goal is to return Georgia to its European path, but we will do it peacefully.
This is one of the biggest pro-EU rallies here in Georgia ahead of the elections. Civil society groups and youth movements have gathered to say Georgia chooses Europe over Russia. The upcoming vote is likely to determine whether their choice will prevail or not.
The ruling party has been in power for the last 12 years and polls show it remains in the lead. But opposition parties still hope they can deprive Georgian Dream of a majority to form a coalition government in its place. Georgia's future is very much at a crossroads in these elections.
OK, straight to the Georgian capital, Tbilisi, where we find our correspondent Yuri Reshetto. Welcome, Yuri. Is this election being framed as a referendum on the idea of Georgia one day joining the EU?
Well, Phil, I think no matter who wins, it will definitely be an election for Europe. 80% of Georgians have been voting in favour for the country's membership in the European Union in all service for years. And the parties know this, which is why they are campaigning for Europe, both the ruling Georgian Dream Party and the opposition. The only difference is that the ruling party says yes to the EU, but under their own conditions, which are anything but European. The last 2 years have proved that. And in that sense, yes, tomorrow's election could be a kind of EU referendum, yes.
OK. Now, on that point, the polls show that more than 80% of Georgians do want to join the EU. But as we heard in the report, Brussels halted accession talks after the ruling Georgian Dream Party introduced this so-called foreign agent law this year. Despite this, the governing Georgian Dream Party is still popular. Can you explain this?
Well, look, the ruling Georgia Dream Party is also pro-Europe on paper. And it was even this party that adopted EU membership as a goal in the constitution in 2018, so 5 years ago. But many people are now asking themselves, okay, if you are in the EU, what does it mean in practice life? Will it make the life more expensive? How independent will Georgia still be? What about the protection of minorities, including sexual minorities? Many Georgians are religious and conservative. And what about war? The ruling party speaks on an alleged global war party and threatens if the opposition wins, there will be war here in Georgia tomorrow.
OK, so the big bear in the room, if I can put it that way, is Russia. How strong is Russia's influence on these elections?
Well, we have no clear evidence of direct interference. Perhaps that it will come, as it did it a week ago in Moldova when Russian agents were exposed. But a lot is happening in an indirect way. False reports are circulated, disinformation campaigns are launched. It's hard to say who exactly is or could be behind it. What is clear is that the Kremlin has a great interest in the government remaining in power because it is seen as friendly to Moscow.
OK, so the election happens this weekend. When are we expecting to get a result?
We'll see how fair the election will be, Phil. For the first time, the majority of votes will be taken online. On the one hand, it's good. We live in modern times. Everything has long been digital. On the other hand, electronic voting also brings a lot of potential for manipulation. After all, there was at least a more or less real election campaign. Both the opposition and the ruling party put up lots of posters, as we have just seen in the report, even though the ruling Georgian Dream had more opportunities to advertise on TV. As for the opposition, unfortunately, reportedly, some of the opposition politicians were intimidated and even attacked. And in that case, we can't see that the election campaign was fair and transparent.
Yuri Risheto in Tbilisi, thank you so much.